Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Izzatunnadhirah binti Azizi. I am a second year first semester student from section 239 of Usrah Budi 3. So the movie that was assigned to me by my group mates is the movie In the Heart of the Sea. In the Heart of the Sea is actually a 2015 historical adventure movie that was directed and produced by Ron Howard and written by Charles Levitt. So this movie is actually based on Nathaniel Philbrick's non-fiction book, which explored two narratives of the sinking of the whaleboat Essex in 1820. So the first narrative is from a first mate, Owen Chase, and another narrative is from a cabin boy, Thomas Nickerson. So the main characters in this movie are first the newly promoted Captain Josh Pollard and his first mate, Owen Chase, and second officer Matthew Joy. So the Essex is also manned by an amateurish crew that includes the 14-year-old Thomas Nickerson and Chase's nephew, Owen Coffin. So the story of In the Heart of the Sea goes like this. So in 1819, the Essex set sail from Nantucket Island that is located in Massachusetts to hunt whales in the Pacific Ocean. So they intended to bring back the whale oil. So the ship was actually expected to take a 2 to 3 year jaunt to the Pacific Ocean before returning home with oodles of whale oil. So fun fact, at that time, Nantucket's economy was based on oil produced from the whales living in Nantucket Harbour. Once it was realized that the whale blubber could be converted into oil. So as the whaling industry grew larger, whaling hunting became so common that even children at that time were trained to hunt whales from an early age. So back to the story. In the first part of this journey, one day the captain, George, that I mentioned earlier, he orders the crew to head into a squall despite Owen's warning about the storm. As the ship gets damaged, the captain ordered the crew to turn around, but unfortunately the wave has caused the ship to be damaged beyond repair. So they capture a sperm whale with Chase once again displaying his expertise by correctly guessing the whale will not be able to dive deep enough to drag the harpoon boat under the water. So in this scene, we can see that it actually shows how Nickerson gets his first experience with whale oil when he is ordered to slip inside the head of the whale to scoop the leftover oil. But unfortunately to them, no whale appears for the Essex for the next several months. So after sailing so far, one day they met a Spanish captain, informed them about a large whale pack's location. But he also warned them that there was a diamond whale. But both Josh and Owen agreed to chase the pack, but they dismissed the warning about the diamond whale because they thought that it was just a myth. So they reach the place and soon after they find the diamond whale. It is actually a very huge 30-foot long white whale, and the whale easily damaged the Essex hull, and this forced the crew to abandon her. So the whale oil the crew had gathered earlier had catch fire, but the crew were able to save the 3 harpoon boats and some makeshift sails. So they rationed their supplies, but the supplies are unfortunately very limited. So in this scene we can see that they had actually faced friction and tense among them. And after several weeks passed, the men had actually grew large beards and grew increasingly haggard and very frustrated. And after a few days, Owen spots the diamond whale following them, and his second mate, Matthew Joy, unfortunately got injured in a storm. So again, when Owen spotted the whale once again, this time it attacked the boats and it managed to kill some men. And they get washed ashore to an island. But the island, Henderson Island, was proven to have an unreliable freshwater source, and the men quickly depleted the birds and shellfish located there. But after some time, Owen found a cave full of decomposing bodies and realized that Other crews that were stranded here waited in vain for someone to rescue them. So because of that, he proposed to leave since he knew that no boats will come to save them. So they leave the island, and they leave the injured Matthew and the three other crews, and along the way, one by one, the men begin to die. So the first several men, they were buried at the sea, but after Owen's whaleboat was separated from the other two and provisions ran low, the men began to eat their dead shipmates. They were hungry and they knew that it is still a long way from the land, so that's why they resort to cannibalism. So at the end of the day, all three boats were separated from each other and one was never to be found. So after sailing over thousands of miles, only 5 of the 20 original crew members were rescued. The members that were managed to be rescued is the captain itself, Captain Josh Pollard, the first mate Owen Chase, Benjamin Lawrence, Thomas Nickerson, as well as Charles Ramsell. And even though they were rescued from this tragedy, I am sure that this tragedy haunted them forever. So, after listening to the plot of the movie, what is actually in the heart of the sea is all about? So there are so many ways to answer the question. First, we could see that it is about the real incident that partly inspired Herman Melville's novel, Moby Dick, that is the famous 1820 destruction of a whaling vessel by a murderously angry sperm whale. We could also say that it's about the relationship between non-fiction and fiction. Or perhaps you might be thinking that, this film is about humankind's collective, slowly dawning realization that whales are not just big fish but intelligent mammals, and the whaling industry was, and actually still is, engaged in interspecies genocide. So this movie can also be said as a survival story, about a group of shipwreck survivors dying of hunger and thirst in lifeboats. But one of the things that make this movie so much more interesting is that they are different accounts from different person who went through the ordeal, as well as the experiences of past and more recent men who have been in the same or similar position as the men that were in the Essex. So this movie actually highlighted the fight, the bravery, and the sacrifice these men went through, from starting off by doing something that their forefathers did, and then watching it turn into their worst nightmare while still waiting for divine intervention to come to their rescue. So we can see that they gave up their homes and families to be at sea for years at a time, and if they were lucky enough to make it home alive, they'll only have a couple of months to spend with their loved ones. And in this movie also, we can see how surviving crews were actually pushed to their limits, and they were forced to do the unthinkable to stay alive. They braved storms, they faced starvation, they faced panic and despair, and this caused them to call into question their deepest belief, from the value of their life to the morality of the trade, as their captain searched for the solution on the open sea, and his first mate still seek to bring the great whale down.
So in my opinion, despite this movie is actually being slow to begin with, it was actually a fascinating movie that not only gave me a great knowledge about whaling, but also finally allowed me to understand the language of Moby Dick, if you're interested in that book. So if you are someone who is interested in great historical tales, I highly recommend watching In the Heart of the Sea, and this is just a very fascinating movie, and it is very vividly portrayed by the actors. So I rate this 8.5 over 10. I think that's all for me. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.